Okay, now let's talk about what happens if you have a Monstera at home that doesn't have fenestrations in its leaves. Hi, welcome back to another Garden Benchtop tutorial. I'm really pumped to share with you this exciting update on this beautiful Monstera and how it's been travelling 4 months on since we staked it to this moss pole. Now I have to get real with you, the true purpose of this tutorial is to share with you some fantastic news. You may be able to see already, but I have one of my first mature fenestrated leaves come out from this Monstera. Now it's been a bit of a journey getting to this point, but I'm really excited to share with you the steps that we took to get it from an immature small Monstera with only a couple of leaves to this beautiful specimen you see before you with our first fenestrated leaf. Now if you've been following along on this Monstera journey, you'll know about 4 months ago we converted a Monstera that was falling over, developing brown tips and looked dehydrated into a thriving tropical plant. Now for the benefit of those that are just joining us on this journey, let me just do a really quick recap of the steps we took to getting this Monstera to what it is looking like today. Now in the beginning, this Monstera was constantly falling over and was developing brown tips. And that prompted me to make quite a few drastic changes. Now as you can see here, we installed a self-watering sphagnum moss pole. Now that's just a simple moss pole with a water reservoir in the middle and a wick that feeds down into the moss pole that keeps the moss nice and moist. Now you can clearly see this Monstera is loving this moss pole. It has several aerial roots that have connected itself into this moss pole for both support and as a secondary source of water. Now the other important part that we changed in this Monstera is changed it out of the potting mix it came in into a chunkier aerated mix with a bit of sphagnum moss in there to retain some moisture. Now the positive changes that we've seen is not only substantial growth, you can see many leaves come out and we're also starting to see some new leaves coming out here, but it's behaving like a Monstera, and that is it's using its aerial roots to grip onto this moss pole, and which is helping it with support, and in return what's happening is it's developing larger, healthier, mature leaves. This is one of the biggest leaves you can see here. It's quite a large leaf. They can get bigger, but what I'm loving here is this beautiful fenestrated hole here. Now I'm hoping the next generation on this growth point will have more fenestrations, and the theory behind that is as this Monstera grows and gets larger, it still needs light to filter down to the smaller leaves, and that's why the fenestrations happen. Okay, now let's talk about what happens if you have a Monstera at home that doesn't have any fenestrations in its leaves. So more than likely you may have received a Monstera for a gift, or you purchased one at your local nursery or store and you've been patiently waiting at home hoping for the next leaf to grow into one of those signature fenestrated leaves that we love so much. Now there's a few things you can do to encourage and expedite that process to get your Monstera to that stage. And ultimately a Monstera will produce fenestrated leaves when it has reached maturity. So the real goal is to get your Monstera as mature as quickly as possible. And there's a few things that you can do. Like we did here, installing a moss pole helps accelerate that maturing process that Monsteras go through. Once the Monstera started to grip onto the moss pole, each generation of leaf quickly grew larger and larger. And all this growth was over the last 3 to 4 months, which means you can get it to this fenestrated point within half a year if you take the right steps. So in the process of helping this Monstera mature, the steps that we took were adding a moss pole to help it reach higher, fertilizing regularly, and that meant for this Monstera during spring I was fertilizing this every other week, so every 2 weeks, and that just helped to supply the nutrients that it needed to grow quickly, and making sure that it was well watered, had plenty of sources of water, so having a self-watering moss pole, and providing plenty of humidity around it so that it never dried out to the point where it was producing brown tips again. The other important factor to consider if you want to speed up the process of fenestrated leaves is to give it plenty of light. So by giving it plenty of light, it's going to force this plant into thinking, hold on, these large leaves are blocking too much sunlight, so I need to start creating holes in my leaves, aka fenestration, so that light can filter down into these lower levels. And the final thing that you can do to expedite the process of fenestrated leaves in your monsteras is to give it regular prunings. Now that should come naturally to you because that's just the usual part of houseplant maintenance. But by removing dying leaves that no longer serve its purpose for the plant, it allows the plant to focus on growth, diverting all the energy that it would use for the lower leaves into the upper growth and speeding up that process and allowing it to mature quicker. So that's it for this update. To sum up, really thrilled about the progress of this Monstera. I cannot wait to see the next leaf along this growth node. Fingers crossed, I'm going to start seeing 3 to 4 fenestrations in the next leaf. I'll be curious to see this new leaf that's starting to appear along this stem will have any fenestrations. The previous leaf seems pretty big, but only time will tell. And my final tip for those of you who are keen to see those fenestrated leaves is patience. Just remember, taking care and growing houseplants is a marathon, not a sprint. Like we always say at the Garden Bench Top, if you do your research, understand your plants better by increasing your awareness of the ideal environment that they should be living in and giving them the right conditions, then they'll show you the love in return. It just takes a little bit of time. Thanks again for watching, and as we say at the Garden Bench Top, go get your hands dirty.